It's time now for Igniting Change, a weekly provocative and empowering program where you, the listener, can ignite change. Now here's your host, Barbara Onwine.
Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up.
Just holler. Get up and holler. What do they say? Shake both your hands. Oh, come on now. It's time for Igniting Change. And we have major happenings all over this country. And we have a great show for you with amazing guests. So let me turn to my mighty, mighty, mighty co-host. You know him. I'm talking about the leader of the Transformative Justice Coalition, the president of the TJC Action Fund. I'm talking about one of our nation's most amazing leaders, innovative, creative, bold, and all that. I'm talking about none other than Daryl D. Jones. Hey, Daryl.
Hey, Barbara, it must be Tuesday. It must be noon Eastern Standard Time because we're talking about igniting change. Barbara, what an exciting show we have in store today. Barbara, one of the wonderful things about working with you and working with the Transformative Justice Coalition is that we get the opportunity to really see change, be change, make change, and watch the impact that change has across this country. One of the things, Barbara, that we did, and I remember meeting Joe Madison, the Black Eagle, a number of years ago at one of the protests that we did where we were able to do a candlelight visual and we co-hosted. Well, today, Barbara, is Joe Madison's birthday, so we want to give certainly a shout-out to his family, remembering the great Black Eagle. And I think that his phrase, Barbara, that epitomizes what we tell people all the time. Joe Madison would always say what? What are you going to do about it? And that's what we love seeing folks get on the ground, get involved, and do something about what's happening. That's what happened 50 years ago on this day in Soweto, right, with the uprising. Today, 50 years ago, they got in there and they did something about the mess that was going on. So Barbara, it's great to be on the show. It's great to be on talking about the issues that are current and relevant about how people can make change, ignite change in their communities. And that's what this show is going to talk about today is change that's happening in Georgia, that's pushing for change there, pushing for change in Louisiana. Barbara, I can barely wait to get started.
All right now, we got so much. Folks, I want you to know that throughout the country there are elections today. Are you voting? You need to be voting. If you live in Alabama, there's some elections today. If you live in California, you have elections today. If you live in Oklahoma, you have a primary election today. Georgia, oh my gosh. Georgia, you have a primary election, you have runoffs and other elections going on today. Washington, D.C., did you hear me, D.C., Washington? Folks, it's time to vote. And if you're in Maryland, early voting is happening right now for all of our statewide offices, our congressional seats. Please, people, show up. Early voting in Maryland will be going on until the 18th. So let's get it on. Let's make sure that we vote. Daryl, before we start our show, we got to tell everyone listening that a tragedy of the making of this government happened last week with an absolutely uncalled for evil raid upon a third-party voter registration group. Ohio Organizing Committee was raided with 100, get ready people, 100 agents spreading out into 3 cities where they had offices, going in, grabbing people's laptops, their cell phones, documents, terrifying people, And then they weren't through. It wasn't bad enough that they just invaded these offices and seized all this equipment. Then they sent agents to people's homes. People that worked with the organization, were clients of the organization, were in any way affiliated with the organization, and started interrogating them. The threat, of course, of prosecution, interrogating them about their relationships with this organization. Folks, we are angry. We are saying that was a violation not only of the First Amendment, not only of the Fourth Amendment, but every constitutional right that we have when we have the federal government trying to put their finger on the scales of elections and tipping those scales by actively attacking organizations that register people to vote, that make sure that people have the right and the ability to vote. If you don't like third-party registration groups, then do some automatic voter registration. There are answers to this. But stop, hurting the people who walk and fill in the gap. Right, Daryl?
Absolutely, Barbara. And to make matters even worse with what they did in Ohio, is that it wasn't just that they went into the offices. It wasn't just that they went into homes, but they did this without warrants. There was no judicial warrant. There was no base that we know of, any basis at all, legal basis for them to do this. And then pouring salt into that wound, Barbara, we also know that they were questioning children. They were questioning children.
Oh my goodness.
So we had all kinds of intimidation that was going on there. But as you've indicated, it ain't going to work. We're going to circle the wagons around Ohio. We're going to circle the wagons and continue to push to register people to vote, push to register to be certain that we support and stand with people that are going to be voting, people that are out there registering people to vote. We've got to stand up, Barbara, because if they win with this fear, then there is no stopping them. So we have got to be certain that we stand up. We always say that fear is contagious, but we also know that courage is contagious. And the more of us that circle our wagons and stand together, the more courageous it will become, because it's not going to stop in Ohio, Barbara. I don't believe that Ohio was the first and only stop that they're going to be trying to make and doing these types of intimidation techniques and tactics.
Anything they can to rig the elections, anything they can. Folks, you say, how does this affect me? Didn't you say this is in Ohio and I'm sitting in New Mexico? I'm sitting here in D.C. How does this affect me? Well, I want you to know right now that it affects you deeply, because they're trying to affect the Congress. They're trying to affect who's going to be your senator in your state. They're trying to, and that affects everybody throughout the country, because we have a do-nothing Congress. We need new and strong Congress people who will fight for us. We need the people in the Senate to fight for us. This do-nothing, rubber stamp, whatever this president says, Congress, this Congress that has taken away health care benefits, this Congress that has taken away SNAP benefits, this Congress that has given billionaires and corporations billions of new dollars. People. We're all affected by it. So we need to get active. So go to handsoff.ohio.org. handsoff.ohio.org, and find out how you can help educate people in your communities about what's happening and why it is critical for us all to raise our voices in protest. Right, Daryl?
Absolutely, Barbara. Absolutely. And we've got to continue to register. We've got to continue to push forward. That's why it's important, Barbara, that people start signing up now for goodtroubleliveson.org. Go to Good Trouble Lives On for that weekend of activation, because we're all about registration this year. That's what we're going to be pushing, is voter registration this year. And we'll be having workshops talking about knowing your rights as part of that teach pillar of the Teach, Reach, Preach Good Trouble Weekend. So go to goodtroubleliveson.org, sign up, go to the page, and let me tell you, when you go to that teach pillar, you're going to be learning about the Know Your Rights campaign and what's going on and how to respond if something should happen.
All right now. We are so grateful for everyone who is involved in this fight. Please become part of goodtroubleliveson.org. Be the leaders of the present day movement. Folks, we have a great show for you today. We're so happy about our show. It's entitled Until Freedom, Organizing to Save Our Vote. Organizing to save our vote. We have some amazing leaders with us today who will talk about our subject, and I want to bring up our leaders. Dr. Clay, Dr. Bryon Clay, are you with us?
Good morning,
Okay.
and God bless you, and greetings to everyone.
All right now, we're so glad you're here. Dr. Clay is one of our nation's most formidable leaders. Dr. Bryon Clay is associated with the new National Christian Leadership Movement. He is a longtime civil rights advocate, former national president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He has deep roots in the civil rights movement, having worked alongside figures like Ralph Abernathy, John Lewis, Coretta Scott King, and Martin Luther King Jr. from a young age. Clay has been active in voter mobilization efforts, particularly in faith-based communities. In 2020, he partnered with Dr. Derek King, nephew of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., on a multi-city tour across Louisiana to encourage early voting and civic engagement. His message emphasized prayer, unity, and the peaceful participation in democracy. But folks, have you seen him? If you've been looking at those videos of protests that were going on in the last weeks in Louisiana, you saw him leading people in prayer, leading people in protest, confronting this outrageous, illegal theft of a black voting district. He was the man that you saw in the leadership. We are so grateful for him, and we want to say welcome, Dr. Bryon Clay. Welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for such a wonderful and moving introduction. And I'm certainly excited to be on this call with you and with you all. And even more so, I am totally committed to the ideals of ensuring and encouraging every member of our community to register, to vote, to make sure you go out and vote, get your family members to vote, your neighbors to vote, and we must vote in major numbers like never before. And if I may say to you today, Attorney Onwine and Attorney Jones, thank you from the depth of my heart. As you all know, currently I'm serving as the National Vice President of the new National Christian Leadership Movement under the most able leadership of Reverend Kenneth Glasgow. And so we thank God for partnering with you and with many others throughout this nation to help to organize people and get them out to vote. If I may, with your permission, may say to you, is that there are moments in history that are distinctive moments, and they are marked by notable events. You know, for example, the stumbling upon America, where indigenous people have been living for thousands of years. We think in mind of the French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, World War II, the era of Dr. King and Dr. Abernathy, and here we are again. Here we are again in a historic moment in history. I think about Woodrow Wilson when he was elected president in 1912. He quoted the Afro-American vote after he won, he instituted a segregation order for federal employees and refused to meet with a delegation of black leaders. Then demoted hundreds of black employees and cut their salary. I tell you, that was a moment then, and we are in a moment now. And we've got to arm ourselves. We've got to arm ourselves and get ready to go to those polls. That's where our vote is. That's where our power is. That's where our voice
All right now. All right now. Thank you. And Daryl, bring up our newest guest. She's never been on our show today, but she was so impressive when we met her at the new National Christian Leadership First National Convention last weekend, this immediate last weekend. Daryl, will you please bring up our amazing new guest?
Sure, Barbara. You know, it's great to welcome to her maiden voyage on Igniting Change Radio, Chassidy Carter. She's the CEO of the Chassidy Design Studio. She's the Miss Black Central Mississippi, USA. She was with Byram Mayoral Health Council member. She's an instructional designer with corporate insurance. You know, Chassidy Carter, Barbara, is a Mississippi native, an instructional designer, entrepreneur, community advocate, Jackson State University chemistry graduate with a background in environmental research and Harvard Instructional Design Studies. She serves on the Byram Mayoral Health Council. She leads creative and instructional design projects through the Chassidy.com, and she currently holds the title of Miss Black Central Mississippi as she prepares for Miss Black Mississippi USA pageant. And Barbara, we had a chance to encounter Chassidy Carter while we were down in Louisiana at the New National Christian Leadership Movement Conference, and she was just so incredibly impressive that we had to bring on this youthful voice to talk about her impressions. Welcome, 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 Chassidy Carter to Igniting Change.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate you all having me, Barbara Armwine, Daryl Jones, and to be here with Dr. Clay as well. Thank you so much.
Well, it's our pleasure and our honor. And let me bring up our final guest. And he's not the least, he might be the last one introduced, but he's so powerful. I am just so happy that returning to Igniting Change is Adrian A.J. Connoisseur Jr. He is the young adult ministry leader at Bridgepoint Church in Marietta, Georgia. He was also a former candidate for Georgia Secretary of State, not scared to run and as a young leader for a major statewide office, and he was amazing on the trail. If you watched him on the campaign trail going all over the state of Georgia seeking votes, it was beautiful to watch. He will be back, I'm sure. He has worked heavily on the ground in the fight for our voting rights across the state, and he is a proud Transformative Justice Coalition, TJC alumni. Welcome back to Igniting Change, Adrian Connoisseur Jr. Hey, Adrian. Hey, Jay.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me here. I'm excited for the conversation today. I'm excited to talk about what is going on. Thank you guys so much for your tutelage, and thank you for this opportunity.
All right now, so let's get rolling. There's so much to cover. Woo-hoo! So much going on right now. So let's start with you, Dr. Clay. Right now, this is, by the way, everyone, Juneteenth week. Juneteenth is June 19th. Are you ready for Juneteenth? Not just to have a holiday, but are you ready to bring the knowledge and the wisdom and education to our people? So on this weekend, on this amazing week, Dr. Clay, tell our people about the amazing convention the first national convention of the new National Christian Leadership Movement. You know, what states were represented at the convention, and also what were some of the highlights that people need to know about the convention? Because this just wasn't people gathering and singing. This was a very social justice, racial justice-oriented conference. Tell people about it.
Yes, well, thank you. And we had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful first annual historic convention, which was held in Kenner, Louisiana, directly across from the airport. And many of our national board members, our national leaders, as I mentioned earlier, our president, Reverend Kenneth Glasgow, and our national chair, the Honorable Kathy Sykes, and our second vice president, Reverend James Bush III, the Honorable Reverend James Bush III, out of Miami, Florida. And we came together, and as we look at the current geopolitical landscape, we woke up finding ourselves having to confront the ongoing hate and racism and divisiveness in America, because we concluded that America is in a revolution against itself. And we open up with a reception, a presidential and a chairperson reception. And there were more than 100 and something leaders of faith, of the civil rights movement, of community leaders, and everyday lay people who were there to greet our president, our chairman, our leadership. We had Mayor Showers and we had Representative Lyons there with us. But this is the thing. We all concluded in our first meeting setting, we noticed that there's a noticeable decline in the status of America with its economic uncertainty. So we had discussions around there. We talked about the deadly wars that was initiated by Russia upon the sovereignty of Ukraine and the self-imposed war on Iran by this nation. And we come to a clearer understanding how those people of racism and hate and violence have operationalized this kind of evil in America. You know, we all done heard about the mass deportation. We've seen it. We hear it every day. We witness homelessness, the black employment, the incarceration on the rise. And what we all must understand is that these people of misguided conscience have now attacked and assaulted voting rights and civil rights and DEI, and they fired hundreds of thousands of federal workers, and they defunded SNAP and whitewashing of our history, erasing our history. What a sad commentary in America, jailing Congress members. Whoever would have thought that jailing mayors and judges and threatening governors, while at the same time pardoning more than 1,500 lawbreakers who were charged with crimes, including seditious conspiracy and assaulting police officers. And here we are, and the sad commentary is, attorney, is that we have people of color voting for race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigots, narcissistic, egomaniac candidates who do not represent our values. Not only do we have to get our people out to vote and register to vote and go vote, but we also have to invest time in helping those who are blinded, who don't understand what's going on, who've been put into a trick, one of the tricks of the enemy, and to hide behind this curtain of religion. Yes. And they have hijacked religion, hijacked the teachings of Jesus Christ. And we must make every effort to help to unfold their eyes so they may see what's going on.
Yes, thank you.
We had
and can you tell people about for you? There were so many elements to this, convention. But can you tell people what, for you personally, was your favorite moment, the highlight for you of this convention?
Well, let me say that during our convention at the Mount Nebo Baptist Church, Bishop Paul Martin took us to a high point. I was very moved by it. During our banquet, our Freedom Award banquet, as you know, it was jam-packed, and there was others who did not make it. But I was very moved by that. But my highest moment is when we came together at our final workshop, where you and Attorney Darrell Jones gave us so much insight. I'm a person who have a thirst and a hunger for information. You all gave us some incredible insight and information. You fed our souls, our understanding, and our spirits. You gave us something more that we needed, to help to bring back into our communities. You gave us not only understanding, but you showed us friendship, and that's what it's all about. And so for me, the high moment is when you all sat down with us in that room around the table and poured out information into our heart and into our souls. That was the high moment for us.
Thank you.
So, and I thank you all for feeding us.
Thank you, sir. It was our honor. And Darrell, I know you want to start questions with Chassidy, and we're coming to you, AJ, because we know where you are. So hold on. We're going to be right to you, Darrell.
And Chassidy, as Reverend Dr. Clay was speaking, I was thinking about all of the stuff that went on during that convention and all the conversations that went on, and the number of youth that were there and were talked about during the convention. What inspired you? I mean, you're a Gen Z. What inspired you to attend the New National Christian Leadership Movement Convention?
Right, thank you. So my goal was to learn from experienced civic engagement leaders like Reverend Dr. Bryon Clay, like yourselves, and gain trusted voter education resources. So as an instructional designer, I work with subject matter experts to translate complex information into clear, accessible content. So attending the New National Christian Leadership Movement Convention felt like a meaningful opportunity to learn directly from people who have been doing this work for years, and then bring those insights back to my community and my social media in practical and understandable ways.
So what are some of those practical and understandable ways that you're taking this content and creating information to educate your audience, the audience that you educate on social media?
Absolutely. So I'll be taking several of the topics that were discussed, and I'll be launching a new Instagram series focused on nonpartisan educational videos around voter education. And I'll be sharing those out with different groups in my area, but the content will be focused on national education that we can use nationally. So hopefully it'll be valuable to everyone, to all of us.
Wow, that's so awesome.
And was there a highlight of the convention that really just lifted you, Chassidy? Was something that was said, or something that you saw, or something that you experienced that said, this is incredible, I'm so glad I was here to experience this?
Oh, gosh, it's hard to choose one. I mean, there were so many spiritual leaders there. That was so impactful for me. Also, oh, gosh, I have to choose between early voting and, you know what? I think the most impactful thing to me was learning that there are safeguards that exist to support voters like if problems arise at the polls. And you all shared hotlines and resources where people could actually reach out and say, hey, this is happening right now, and having those resources available.
And Daryl, I think, that's so good, Chassidy, to point that out, because we will be doing our election protection program with we hope with the National Bar Association again. They've already been in conversation. We're looking for, to be able to help voters in so many ways. And that's why on this next week, everybody listen to me, on the 25th of June, if you know lawyers, tell them that we are holding a 2 o'clock p.m. introduction to lawyers about how they can help in this 2026 vote during Good Trouble Lives On. So the lawyers can go to goodtroubleliveson.org like you can, and they can sign up for that webinar. We're going to have Attorney General Keith Ellison of Minnesota as our keynote speaker, but we're going to break down, just what we're going to be doing on that Teach, Reach, and Preach Day and how lawyers can help. So please, everybody, spread the word. That's June 25th at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern. We will be doing this major training. We already have hundreds of lawyers signed up. Daryl, let me bring up A.J. Constantine. A.J., you are right now, as we're talking, at a major protest happening in the state of Georgia. And, in fact, the name of the protest, everybody, I was looking at the flyer because the mighty Gerald Griggs, who is the president of the Georgia NAACP, was going to join us today, but he can't because he has to speak at this protest. And the protest is entitled, "The Church Has Something to Say." Did you hear that, Dr. Clay? The church has something to say. NAACP and Clergy Day of Prayer. Right now, as you're dealing with this protest, AJ, tell us what's the atmosphere and why is this protest happening? It sounds like your governor reneged on his word, right?
Yes, he did. Truth be told, that today was a premise of fighting back, but making sure we went back to our roots, to go back to the blueprint of how these battles have been won before. When it came down to the civil rights movement moving forward, the way that it was able to move was through the church. And we have gotten into a point in today's time where, unfortunately, because we want to protect our 501c3 assets, we want to be able to protect ourselves from being seen as too political. There's a lot of different ways that people are trying to say that, the church should not be involved in different areas of this sort. But we know what that is unfortunately doing as a means of removing the very same body that was able to invoke so much change that we currently live in today's society, and that is the church. So many people come in looking for answers. People come into the church halls looking for prayer, looking for guidance. And we have gotten to a point now where we think that we can give guidance in all different aspects of someone's life, but we are unable to speak humanity and speak the love of God when it comes to the halls of politics. And that is something that must change. So today at the Capitol, what we were able to do was we were there with Pastor Jamal Bryant, as well as a plethora of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. And we had a plethora of other ministers that came in as well, a lot of Georgia leaders who came and prayed at the Capitol. We began to do a march of Jericho around the Capitol building.
No, you didn't.
Tomorrow starts the actual special session itself. Right now, there is so much that's at stake. And yes, we do have an election today. So if you are in Georgia and you hear my voice, make sure you go and vote, because tomorrow starts the battle all over again. We need to make sure that people's voices are heard no matter what. And the crazy thing is that, and I was just sitting there thinking about the irony of it all. We were made in the image of God, and God made us with his word, which means that with our voices, they are supposed to invoke change and create the world that we want to live in. And what better way for us to be able to protect that very right of power that God himself gave us than to protect our right to vote? Because that is our voice. So with us looking at so many people trying to muzzle the voices of the people across the entire nation, we need to be able to stand up and fight back. We can't go silently into these nights. The church must be present in this fight because we know how to maneuver and mobilize voices to speak on behalf of what the people need.
My. And I just want everyone to know that Governor Kemp of Georgia had said publicly when the Calais case was decided, that evil decision, wrong-headed, absolutely must be overturned decision by the United States Supreme Court, when it said that they felt that majority African American districts that remedy racial discrimination in voting were somehow unconstitutional. When they said that, the Georgia governor said, well, this has no application in Georgia. We don't need to redistrict. We have no urgency around this. We're not going to redistrict. Yet, here you are, AJ, walking around Jericho style around the Capitol because he ended up calling a special session of the Georgia State Legislature to engage in redistricting for congressional and state districts. And he actually had the nerve to do this on the heels, right as we're getting ready to start the Juneteenth week. What has been the reaction in Georgia to this betrayal?
Truth be told, the reaction in Georgia has been, if this is what you're going to be about, then we're going to show you what we're about. Tomorrow, we're packing the Capitol. Because tomorrow is the start of the special session. We come from a certain part of Georgia that lives by the terms of, if you're going to talk about it, you better be able to back it up. So we're going to be there, and we'll be talking to every single legislator that we possibly can, watching every single session, being involved in every single committee hearing, every single time that a conversation goes on the House or Senate floor that goes forward to talk about whether it's with this redistricting that's going on or if we're talking about HB 369 that they just passed that's causing for only 5 of the 159 counties in Georgia to have nonpartisan elections when it comes to our DA office, when it comes to our coroner's office, when it comes to our county commissions, and various different other positions throughout the actual county. It's just 5 counties that they're trying to target this on, but those positions they're targeting are actively ran by black women. And it's very telling for them to have this go through. So with us doing HB 369, we'll be talking about that. We also have a new bill that has been, not even a new bill, a bill that was passed years ago that was not funded in this past session. But it was the very bill that would give them the ability to come back and call a special session. They were waiting on the Louisiana versus Calais decision to be announced. And this decision was to remove the QR codes off of our ballots because we use ballot marking devices here in Georgia. And with them removing them off of the ballot but without passing proper funding for it, we run the risk of having illegitimate elections after July 1st.
Wow.
So we have to come back and talk about that as well. And then there's a plethora of other things they're about to throw right onto the whole premise of all the things that we'll be talking about. But the main thing that needs to be the focus is that Georgians do not practice apathy. We need to be engaged and feel every ounce of what is happening because they're trying to do it underneath our noses, but they don't know that we got some hound dogs and we are ready to fight back.
Wow. And quickly, Daryl, I was shocked when I heard today that talking about getting rid of two congressional districts held by African Americans currently in Georgia, and 26 state-level seats. That's what they're talking about. On Juneteenth of Freedom Week, they're going to make it a re-enslavement week. Dr. Clay, when you hear this, how do you react? What are you saying to the ministers in Georgia right now about what they need to do? Dr. Clay? All right.
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Okay, there you go.
Would you repeat that question?
Yes,
again?
I asked you when you hear what's happening in Georgia, what do you have to say to those ministers who are in Georgia? And fortunately, as AJ says, a lot have shown up. What do you want the ministers to keep doing as the leader of the new National Christian Leadership Movement?
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you. So let me point out that, first of all, that people who truly love God and America and democracy, we got to always be prayerful and resilient and nonviolent and determined to resist the hate and the violence and the evil in the offices of our government. And the church has to recapture the original sacrificial teachings of Jesus and Dr. King. The church has never, just been a spectator. And so I'm honored, I'm proud, I'm moved, I'm happy to hear that the ministers and the clergy in the state of Georgia is leading the way and becoming an example for other ministers throughout this nation. So, the church has more sway over Afro-American people than any institution in the world. And so we have a choice to keep and a God to glorify. And that is just not within inside the church walls. That is on the outside as well. So to hear that pastors, and Georgia has a history of pastors getting civically engaged. And so I want to encourage them to keep pressing on, keep on pressing on. God has already furnished us the spirit and the motivation to bring about a positive and courageous change, because for the ministers, this is and should be a way of life for us toward justice and fairness for all God's people.
And Dr. Clay, one of the things when Barbara and I were in Chicago, we had the opportunity to attend the Rainbow Push convention prior to coming down to Louisiana. One of the things that came out of that conference, out of Rainbow Push convention, that just stuck with me, and Barbara's heard me repeat this several times and several people have as well, is that there was one rabbi, I believe either rabbi or she was Jewish, that was speaking of the Jewish faith. And she used the quote that if I see myself in others, what harm can I do? And in listening to you, Reverend Dr. Clay, I just wonder, is that some of the spirit that comes out of the new National Christian Leadership Movement as well, is to see yourself in others and to have them change their ways? Is that part of what was coming out of that conference?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And let me just remind you that ultimately, justice will prevail, and that the church and civil rights leaders and those who are engaged, we must maintain the high moral ground, and all of our initiative and actions for social change has to be grounded in love and rooted in faith, and then operationalized through discipline and nonviolent action. Excuse me, because I still continue on that there are unapologetic racists and haters, and they have a selective rage against people of color. That's a fact. That is a fact. We can't turn our face away from it, not at all. And so And so we have to continue to be prayerful and resist all of the evil tactics that MAGA and other supremacists and those who are against democracy have employed against us. Racism is evil and is dangerous. No matter what you say, no matter what no one says, no matter what they're not ready to face, at the core of it all is racism and hate, and they continue to espouse this replacement theory among themselves. They try to keep it away from us. They don't want us to hear that part, but that's the reality of it. And we cannot take no vacation from reality. So we have to set the tone, personally and collectively, in this struggle for a more just and peaceful world, a fair world.
Thank you. And Chassidy, you've been listening to what's going on in Georgia, and you mentioned your goal of bringing this public, nonpartisan videos and public education. As you've heard it today, what has been some of your thoughts about how this will affect your communications as a content creator, how it will affect your communications to young people? Because, AJ is a he's a young man who just ran for Secretary of State. And, of course, you heard from Councilman Willard, who's another young leader. How will you use your content to reach the young people?
Yes, absolutely. My hope is that I want to always create accessible content, and I hope that young people will see me as an example that no matter where you are in your understanding of voter education and civic engagement, you can get involved, you can learn, you can share as you go, make an impact by voting and encouraging others and bringing people along, actually, to vote with you, and that we can ignite change together. So that's my goal. I want to always be accessible and to be reachable to the younger audience, and to encourage them that you never have to feel like you have to emulate someone else. You can start exactly where you are.
And, AJ, listening to Chassidy speak of starting where you are and bringing your talents to the table, to the movement, right, for voting rights, for civil rights, whatever it may be, you, too, have come out of a similar sliver. I sort of remember something about an AJ Consigliere down in Houston doing something with poetry. So do you have some words along those lines as well, AJ, about utilizing your talents that you're given?
Absolutely. And truth be told, first, I got to go back to my main roots because I did hear it earlier. I was going to try to ignore it. But, Chassidy, with you going to Jackson State, you were right down the street from me. I was at Grambling.
Okay.
And the fact that something was going on in that area that made it to where we're on this stage now to fight back. But,
right.
Yes, it is very much imperative that we use what God has given us to go forward and share the message, no matter what. I am a poet. I love doing poetry. It's one of my favorite ways of self-expression. And I do know that I've got, because the arts are so vast, there's so many ways to do expression. And if we get into a spot where people are able to understand what is going on through our version of expression, that helps to, what's the term I'm looking for? Awareness. It spreads awareness in more ways than one. It's honestly the best way for individuals to understand what's happening right now. I think about when my favorite rapper, Kendrick Lamar, would write his pieces, especially when To Pimp a Butterfly came out. There were so many different notes that were in it that let people know what was at stake in the communities that they could not directly see. This is the story. I remember in Good Kid, Mad City, where he said, sing about me, sing about me. There are so many things that must be talked about that will never be seen in the brighter light if we do not open our mouths and talk about the situations at hand. And so for us to be able to be in these spaces and we have these experiences, we must keep track of it. And art is a great way of capturing a moment in time and allowing for us to tell the story for years and years to come. So we must be able to do that. And honestly, Chassidy, I look forward to working with you on making sure that happens, because everybody has a story to tell. And we got to make sure that their stories are being heard.
Yes, sir. Let's do that.
All right now. And as we all talk, I have a final question for all of you. How does the work that the NNCLM is doing, the work that you're doing right now, Chassidy, to educate people, and the work that you're doing right now at the State House with ministers and protests of this absolutely immoral session they're about to have, can you tell our national audience how it relates to John Lewis' Good Trouble Lives On? Because on July 17th, 18th, and 19th, we'll be out there. And we're saying right now to anyone listening, go to goodtroubleliveson.org and become a host of an event in your community anywhere in the country. Please join us for Good Trouble Lives On. So how does all of this relate, Dr. Clay, to Good Trouble Lives On?
Yes, ma'am. I would certainly say that our nation is morally bankrupt, and that the new National Christian Leadership Movement, which is the newest civil rights organization in America, we are committed to work with all organizations who fight for freedom, justice, and equality for all people. And we are calling upon everyone, number one, is to come to Selma on July the 4th. And we'll be having a number of workshops and marches and rallies and feeding and et cetera. You will certainly be hearing more about it. And then secondly, I am a fervent and ardent believer in the work and the legacy of John Lewis, which has been indelibleized in our heart. I worked with him. I know him. I served with him. And everybody ought to get involved with Good Trouble Day weekend, July the 17th through the 19th, wherever it exists in the community. And if your community does not have a Good Trouble Day, John Lewis Good Trouble Day, please take the initiative and capture the vision to help bring your community together so that we can continue to keep this spirit of John Lewis that remain with us. Good trouble. There's good trouble to get, more good trouble now than ever before that we can get in. So I'm with it. I'll be in Jackson, Mississippi. I'll be going to Alabama, and but get involved with Good Trouble.
Thank you.
Good Trouble Day.
Thank you. Daryl?
AJ, people are listening to this show and they're wondering, how do I get in touch with this AJ Consigliere guy, and how do I find my way down to the Capitol? How do people reach you, AJ?
Absolutely. Well, if you would like to join the movement, first and foremost, go to that Good Trouble Lives On website. Promise you'll find me everywhere. But if you want to come to Atlanta, we will be doing our Atlanta flagship for that day. And you can reach me personally at AJ, on Instagram at AJConsonery, AJ Consigliere. It's Italian. I apologize. But you can also reach me at an email of ajconsigliere@gmail.com. Reach out, let's talk, let's plan, and let's make this movement work for the rest of our lives.
And Chassidy Carter, the same question of you. Folks are listening to you. They're wondering, how am I going to find out what's going on with all the content that she's creating on social media? How do people reach you, and what are your parting words for our guests today?
Thank you. I would love to continue connecting with civic leaders and attending community events, collaborating with others doing this work. You can connect with me at the Chassidy, the _ Chassidy, that's THE_CHASSID as in David Y. And please stay tuned for my voter education series coming soon. You can also find me at thechassidy.com.
Awesome, fantastic. And Reverend Dr. Clay, there are people that now want to be part of this new national Christian leadership movement. Do you have to be a minister? Do you have to be a Christian minister to be part of the NNCLM? And how do they join?
1 minute.
No, you do not have to be a minister. You do not have to be a teacher. If you have the willingness and you're want to stand up for justice and fairness for all people, you're welcome to become a part of us. Look us up at the New National Christian Leadership Movement website.
Thank you so much. Reverend Dr. Clay, thank you so much for being with us today. AJ Consinari, thank you so much for being with us today. And Chassidy, thank you for being with us today. Folks, we say it, we'll say it again. Sometimes you got to just get off the sidewalks, get into the streets, and get into some good trouble. If you're in one of the states that's voting today, make your way down to that polling place, cast your ballot for the candidate of your choice. Let me tell you, until next Tuesday, noon, Eastern Standard Time, stay in the fight, stay in there, stay in there, stay in there. Peace, everybody.
Peace.
Peace. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. So proud of you. Thank you.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Urban One Incorporated, Radio One, or any of its subsidiary companies.
The preceding program was paid for by Barbara Arnwine.